2024 is coming to an end, so let's talk about what's happened in Sweden this last year. This is gonna be a bit of a weird video, but then again, it always is, isn't it? Anyway, let's grab a beer and let's talk about the best and the worst of Sweden in 2024. Happy New Year, even though I'm recording this in advance. I really hope that nothing earth-shattering has happened in the last 2 weeks. Otherwise, all of this is gonna sound pretty outdated. But enough of that, let's talk about the best and the worst that's happened in Sweden in 2024. Let's start with a couple of highlights. I usually complain about the weather in Sweden, but it's actually been a really warm and mild year. If this keeps up, I'm gonna have to retire my jokes about the crappy weather in Sweden. Then again, it's most likely due to global warming, so I can still complain about something. And there's still no risk that Sweden won't be cold and miserable, because in January 2024, 1,000 cars were stuck in a snowstorm in the south of Sweden. And hundreds of people were stuck in another snow chaos in November. So yeah, Sweden is still cold and dark and a bit like Mordor. And speaking of November, there was another tragic incident just recently when the roads started to become icy. A truck full of beer tipped over on Road 66, causing lots and lots of precious beer to be lost in a pile of frozen glass and frozen beer. Let's bow our heads in respect for this tragic accident. Now, let's move on to something more lighthearted. In October, the newspaper Aftonbladet reported that a cow called Solbritt was stuck in a tree. Don't worry, Solbritt is fine. A bunch of firemen managed to get her free. But I still feel that Sweden can't be all that bad if a cow getting stuck in a tree is deemed a newsworthy incident to write about in a national newspaper. I already talked about the traffic jam in January, but let's talk a bit more about what happened in the beginning of the year. In February, there was a fire at Liseberg, Sweden's biggest amusement park. A new area, Oceana, was supposed to open in summer, but it was completely destroyed. I would make a joke about a water area being destroyed by fire, but since one person died in that fire, I'm just gonna keep quiet. In March 2024, Sweden ended 200 years of so-called neutrality when we finally joined NATO. Thanks for that, Putin. But oh well, now we've taken the plunge, so it's time for us to start investing more in our military again. In happier news, Sweden hosted the Eurovision Song Contest in Malmö in May 2024. We did horribly and came 9th place, but we had a couple of Norwegians competing for us for some reason. I blame them. Other than that, there wasn't really all that much that happened in the first half of 2024. Or maybe I'm just forgetting everything because it happened more than half a year ago. Or maybe I'm getting senile. Either way, let's focus on the very event-filled second half of 2024. In August 2024, the first gold mine for 10 years opened in the north of Sweden. I don't really have anything more interesting to say about that except, yay, gold! That same month, the first case of Mpox was discovered in Europe, and it was discovered in Sweden. I guess we almost started a new pandemic, sorry for that, but it seems to have been successfully contained. Then in October, the French football player Kylian Mbappe, sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Anyway, he was accused of sexual assault while visiting Stockholm. That became a big thing in Sweden, with an exposé about the secret parties with girls and booze and drugs that the rich and famous take part in. As if that's something new, I don't think a single person was surprised. The Swedish economy has been pretty miserable all of 2024 with a crap market and horrible inflation, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Inflation is sinking and the rates have been lowered. That's good for us mere mortals at least, even if the Swedish economy is still pretty crap. Oh, and do you remember that controversy that happened in 2023 when a Danish guy came here to burn some holy books? He decided to burn the Quran at multiple locations, and he also put bacon on it, and that made many Muslims upset. Well, in November 2024, he was charged with hate crimes because of that. So I guess that there's some sort of sense moral in this. It's fine to be critical of other religions, but don't be an about it. Oh, and don't be Danish. Now let's talk politics. Yay, everyone's favorite topic. Anyway, there's been that whole presidential election over in the US, and Trump won somehow. There was a poll to see how Sweden would have voted, and 73% would have voted for Harris and 14% for Trump. Interestingly enough, 50% of Sverigedemokraterna voters, the Swedish right-wing party that's critical towards immigration, are pro-Trump. It basically shows that what Sweden traditionally has seen as an extreme right-wing party has the same sympathies as the majority of Americans. But there's more to talk about when it comes to Swedish politics. How about some good old corruption, for example? There's been a huge scandal with a politician named Anna Kinberg Batra in Sweden. She was governor of Stockholm and decided to appoint a number of friends to high-paying government positions. That wouldn't have been surprising if this was, I don't know, Venezuela or something, but you don't do stuff like that in Sweden. She made a half-assed attempt at following the rules though. She posted a couple of job advertisements on a physical billboard for a week before appointing her friends, so she sort of followed the process-ish. Except she overruled all complaints that her friends didn't have the right qualifications. In the end, she's still completely unrepentant and admits to no fault at all, but she was let go of her job as governor. Unfortunately, she still got a cushy government job in the metaphorical elephant graveyard, so I guess corruption still pays in Sweden. But that's not all regarding Swedish politics. Sweden's Minister of Gender Equality has also been making a bit of a mess. She's apparently been sending out orders to events and parties that no bananas are to be present when she's attending. Those requests have claimed that she's highly allergic, so all bananas need to be removed, regardless if it's Grand Hotel or the Royal Palace. But she's not allergic, she has a banana phobia instead. So she's been inconveniencing lots and lots of people, and she's blamed it on a severe allergy. But she's actually afraid of bananas. I'm sympathetic to people with phobias. I can't stand spiders myself. But I wouldn't expect people to guarantee that a state dinner is spider-free if I'm going there. Or well, I wouldn't expect there to be spiders either way, but I wouldn't make a fuss and demand that an exterminator sanitize the whole place. I guess this simile isn't really working. But either way, the point is that people think that she has been making unreasonable demands. You could even say that she's acting a bit bananas. From politics, let's move on to war. The war in Ukraine is unfortunately slogging along, and Swedish weapons are at least helping a little bit in Ukraine. Sweden has donated light armor vehicles, boats, ammunition, artillery pieces, and a lot more. In spring 2024, the Archer artillery system was taken into action, and it seems like it's been doing some good down there. People are praising its speed and accuracy, and it's been shooting down Russian drones, for example. And more Swedish weapons are being exported, because both Brazil and Colombia will buy JAS-39 Gripen fighter jets from Sweden. It's a fighter plane that can't really compete with the top-of-the-line US fighters, except in some areas. For one thing, it's extremely versatile, since it's designed to be launched from Swedish highways. And it's also much easier to support than US fighter jets. But most importantly, it's cheaper. Like a lot cheaper, while still delivering good performance. And speaking of war, it unfortunately seems like war is looming over Europe these days. That was visualized in November when the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, MSB, released a pamphlet In Case of Crisis or War. It's a new edition that replaces the old one from 2018, and it caused a bit of talk all over the world. Some people speculated that this means that Sweden is preparing for war. Will the Swedish Vikings march east? Of course not, but it would be pretty stupid to not be prepared if megalomaniac dictators get weird ideas. I guess I should mention the Baltic Sea as well. 13 new wind turbines were planned out in the Baltic, but the government overruled those plans. The reason? Because it would make defending the Baltic more difficult. And there might be some cause for that caution, because in November a Chinese ship was accused of sabotaging internet cables on the seafloor. They departed from Russia with a Russian captain and apparently dragged their anchor along the seafloor for miles, accidentally cutting the cables. Yeah, right. If you believe that, I have some lovely seaside real estate to sell you in Jämtland. Oh, and guess what happened in December? The same thing happened again with another ship. It shows that the world is getting more and more polarized. Russia and China are working together with support from many other countries. And things are getting more and more tense between the East and the West. Even if World War III isn't coming anytime soon, I'm afraid that we might see a war of the chillier kind at the very least. Other than that, there's still a lot of crime in Sweden, despite new laws that the police can randomly search people in certain zones. And there's been evidence that connects political party leaders with organized crime. But I want to end on a happier note, so I've noted that there are more and more geek events happening. Comic-Con, DreamHack and NADCon are all expanding. And the Swedish quality of life is still extremely high compared to the rest of the world. It's actually the second best in the world after those bloody Danes, according to an article in 2024. So despite all the problems lately, I think we should remember that Sweden is still a beautiful and great place to live. Even if it's a bit difficult to believe when it's cold and dark and miserable in the middle of winter like this. And that's about it. That was a list of the best and worst of Sweden in 2024. I hope you found it interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, Happy New Year! No, most importantly, have a great day.